PowerPlayChess, brought to you in association with Kagi. The World Championship match between Ding Liren and Gukesh D begins in Singapore on Monday, the 25th of November, 9 a.m. GMT. I'm really excited. I absolutely love the World Championship. I love the tradition of it, that there's a clear lineage going back to 1886 when Steinitz defeated Zukertort. And of course, it's significant that in 1886, there were two Central Europeans battling for the title. And now we have Ding from China and Gukesh from India, two Asians. I think that says a lot. So in this video, I want to take you through the match format, the prize fund, and look at the players' previous encounters with each other, and also give an assessment of their current form. Ding and Gukesh will play 14 classical games. So the time control is 2 hours for 40 moves, followed by 30 minutes for the rest of the game. And the increment, 30-second increment, only kicks in from move 41. Now, I like that version of classical chess. I like it. There's no increment before move 40. Somehow, the clock becomes more important and you can have some fantastic time scrambles. See, I'm a traditionalist. I didn't grow up playing with an increment, but I think it's right that they have an increment after move 40. So whoever makes it to 7.5 or 8 first becomes the world champion. And if it's 7-all after the 14 games, then they go into tie breaks. And of course, that's rapid play. But okay, I'll get into that if we get closer to that. Prize fund is $2.5 million. Now, if a player wins the game, they receive $200,000 for each win. And then at the end, the remaining prize money will be split between the players. And yeah, if there's tie break, then it's 1.3 million to the winner, 1.2 to the loser. Right, let's look at the players. So Ding qualified for the match as the reigning world champion. Remember, he defeated Yan Nepomniachtchi in that extraordinary nail-biting match in 2023. And Gukesh qualified by winning the candidates in April. You remember that epic last round where Caruana and Nepo played but both missed out. So let's look at the players. Well, clearly the big difference between them is the age. So Ding is 32, Gukesh is 18. So if Gukesh wins the match, he will become the youngest ever world champion, and his rise in the chess world has been meteoric. I think it's quite interesting that they both were born in cities that are ports. So Wenzhou is a large port city on the east coast of China. Chennai, of course, a large port on the east coast of India. And I think, both these cities have, great traditions of trade and connections with other parts of the world. And I think that's quite significant, actually. Somehow, maybe this is my amateur psychology, but I think, you're more likely to kind of make it in the world, go out in the world if you're from a port city. It's just my view. Now, current rating. Well, this is where the controversy arises because neither is in the top two in the world. So we have Ding, the current world champion, who has a rating of 27.28. He's number 22 in the world. And Gukesh, number 5 in the world, he's rated 27.83. But if you look at the players' peak ratings, so 27.94 for Gukesh, well, he's not far off that, and that was only last month. Ding's peak rating was 28.16, and that was in November 2018. So as far as I'm concerned, when I remember Ding playing at his absolute best in 2018 and 2019. Remember, he had that streak of 100 games where he was undefeated. And in 2019, he was a real match for Carlsen. I think he's capable of playing the better chess than Gukesh. Whether he can actually achieve that is another matter. Now, what about their previous encounters? Well, we've got actually very few games that they've played against one another. A couple of online games, one Blitz, one Rapid. They were drawn, but from 2021. Then we have 3 classical games. And I'd like to take a look at little snippets from all 3 of those games. So starting with their game played in the Tata Steel tournament in 2023. This was the players' first classical encounter. So from round 1 of the Tata Steel tournament in 2023, Gukesh playing white, Ding playing black. I mean, this is a really complex middle game. But basically, Ding has taken control. I mean, it's this bishop, which just dominates the position. And this one isn't bad either. But it is still quite tricky. But this is a very odd placement here of the queen. And that knight, if it's succeeded in hopping around to f5, for example, then, this could be up in the air. But, Ding basically seized this game by the scruff of the neck now. He found a fantastic idea. f5. This is absolutely brilliant. And I'm sure underestimated by Gukesh. So why f5? Well, if this is taken, it's basically just breaks open white's kingside. If this is taken, here's the fantastic idea. g4, so giving up another pawn, and then the queen switches to claim this diagonal. And in combination with this bishop, it is absolutely deadly. So here, bishop b7, so threatening this classic checkmate. So both these squares are covered. However, after king h8, followed by rook g8, basically white's king is helpless. It's a winning position. And if queen takes, then basically the f-file is open and black can get there. The pressure is just too much for white. So Gukesh played knight g3. This was taken. And again, if bishop takes, then black takes this diagonal. This is fatal. So knight f5, bishop moved and h5. But it's clear that Ding is now in control. But the way he won was, again, absolutely brilliant. Watch this. So king f8, that just takes the king off this sensitive diagonal. And these pawns advancing. Got to watch out for this move now. And a brilliant finish. Rook takes. And bishop d3. An absolute killer. If that's taken, then of course there's a lethal discovered attack. So Gukesh played this, but once that knight drops, it's over. And g3, of course, seals the win for black. And bishop h3, followed by this one, and it is game over. So here Gukesh resigned. So an absolutely thumping victory for Ding in their first classical game. In fact, neither player had a particularly good Tata Steel tournament in 2023. I think they both finished on 5, bottom half of the tournament. Okay, let's look at their next classical game. And this was played in the Tata Steel tournament in 2024. Ding played a really daring idea here. This is such a complex game with both players with their kings on opposite wings. And Ding decided to bust open the position just so he could win that pawn. But I think it's typical of both players that they are really going for it. And basically Ding took control. Gukesh played inaccurately, and at a certain point it was game over. I have recorded this before. I have looked at this on the channel previously. So if you want to see the whole game, then, well, I'll put the link below. But basically, Ding finished off. He is a brilliant calculator. And, I've seen him, well, on many occasions, construct mating nets. And, well, this is no different here. The king got chased up the board. Here, Gukesh resigned. And, well, yeah, he resigned after rook e4 check. But, yeah, this is a nice finish. You're going to play here and then queen a2 mate, for example. So first two classical games won by Ding in convincing fashion, actually. And that was less than a year ago. That was played on the 15th of January 2024. Okay, their third classical game. Now, this was played in St. Louis in August in the Sinquefield Cup of this year, 2024. And again, I've looked at this game on the channel previously, but I wanted to just show you the critical moment in this game. So basically, Gukesh has already qualified from the candidates. He qualified in April. This is played in the first round of the Sinquefield Cup. Ding struggling with his form. I'll talk more about that in a moment. And here Ding played bishop d3. You can see he's on the attack. He's got really nice pieces here. But black is quite solid. But, this pawn is a nice spearhead. But he basically decided with bishop d3 to go for a draw. After this, really white doesn't have anything better than to just sacrifice the bishop and the rook. And then that's a draw by perpetual check. And that's how the game ended in a repetition. But I have a feeling if Ding were feeling more confident, then he would have played rook e1. Simple idea, playing the rook up to e4 and then to h4. And obviously that's a winning attack. Black can prevent that. But even so, white has excellent attacking chances, even if the direct mating attack doesn't work. There's the h-pawn, there's the bishop can still come to d3. I think if Ding were confident, he would have gone for this. He doesn't really risk much in this position. You can see all white pieces are active, and there's no fear of the d-pawn advancing either. But I think it just shows you the kind of form Ding has been in, which frankly, well, as we know, he's been struggling. And I just want to show you a couple of examples of that. So at the Olympiad, so let's look at their current form. So after his victory in that incredibly tense, nerve-jangling World Championship match against Nepo, Ding has really struggled with his form. Psychologically, clearly, something's not right with him. And, he said as much as well. He in an interview he gave a couple of weeks ago, he said, let me get the exact quote. He said, this was, by the way, an interview with Take, which is the Carlson app, the Carlson media vehicle. So Kaya, Norwegian presenter, asked Ding, how are you feeling? And he said, not so bad, but not so good. And he kind of said it with a wry smile. This was after the Olympiad. Let me show you how a couple of games that he played in the Olympiad. So this was in the 10th round. Ding had black against Abdusattorov. Now Ding outplayed Abdusattorov. This shows that he can play well. He has a winning position here, but he played knight a4. You can see this pawn is just one step from queening. But the game ended like this. And, well, you can see that with even material, the game quickly ended in a draw. But in fact, this is a winning position for black. He could have played rook c8. If rook takes h7, then the knight just comes back. Now that will cover this pawn. and then the rook comes to c2. The point is you're going to take the knight with check, and the queen goes through. And if rook b1, then you can simply protect that pawn, and then the rook just scoops up the b pawn, and then knight c3. This is completely winning. The king just can't approach the rook, basically, because of that knight c3 and a fork. So in this position, rook c8 was a winning move. And let me show you one more game. And this time against Parham Maghsoodloo from Iran, of course, very, very strong player. Ding playing white from the 9th round. So Ding was on board 1, playing for China in the Olympiad. And these games followed a particular pattern. So Ding drew all his games and lost one game. But in a lot of those games, Ding achieved a winning position against decent opponents, like as here against Maghsoodloo. So you can see Ding, material is even, but Ding has this wonderful pass pawn on b7. And he found an excellent switch with the bishop. So this bishop has served its purpose on this diagonal, and he played bishop c1. Excellent move. So threatening a check. So the king stepped to the side. And now Ding played rook a5 check. Now this is move 39, so perhaps he was in time pressure. I don't know. He took here. And yes, white is still better in this position. But basically, Maghsoodloo managed to draw this endgame. Rook and pawn endgames, well, they're very difficult to put away. But in fact, in this position, there is quite a simple win for white. I'm guessing Ding was in time pressure. He could have played king f3. So black has to try and round up this pawn. So king c6. Rook b1, the rook goes behind the pawn. Rook d7, black has to try and take the pawn. And now bishop f4, and there's nothing that black could do to prevent this. An exchange. The pawn is going through, so it's got to be taken. And then simply king takes pawn, and the king is just going to take all the pawns, and that is game over. Quite a simple win. Must have been time pressure. But, you know, time pressure is often a symptom that you're not feeling confident. So as I said, this is a pattern in Ding's play. And yeah, he has been struggling with his form. So, you know, if we look in, just going right back to Tata Steel 2024, he lost 3-1-2. So that was in January 2024. At the Grenka tournament in Germany, at Easter time, he scored 4 out of 10. Norway Chess, no classical wins. Sinquefield Cup, 2 losses, 7 draws. The Olympiad, 1 loss and 7 draws. At least in the Olympiad, he was getting good positions, but he just couldn't convert them. And basically, he hasn't won a classical game since Tata Steel in January 2024. So he is struggling at the moment, no doubt about it. But yeah, there is hope in his Olympiad form. Okay, what about Gukesh? Well, Gukesh, obviously he won the candidates. And then he had a superb Olympiad. And it seems to me he's a player for the big events. Actually, in between, he didn't play that well. Sinquefield Cup, 4.5 out of 9, all draws. And after the Olympiad, he played the European Club Cup, scored 4 out of 7. Well, okay, that's maybe too near the match to sort of take it seriously. But yeah, he's a player for big tournaments. So let me show you a couple of his games from the Olympiad. Again, I've already gone through some of his games on the channel. But yeah, let me show you just a snippet of this game. So again, this is Parham Maghsoodloo. Apologies to any Iranian viewers. Maghsoodloo's getting a drubbing at the moment in this video. But, you know, this is an incredibly complex position. Gukesh playing black could have simplified things by taking that. And I think black is better, but it's not easy. Those knights aren't very flexible. And I think it's actually quite difficult to make progress. But I don't think black is in any danger there. But Gukesh gambled. He played knight g4, and this becomes incredibly complex. So you can see there's lots of pieces hanging here. There's no sort of pawn structure to stabilize. So the knight came back. So this one is hanging. Bishop takes. It's really, really sharp. Lots of pins, lots of tactics. If queen takes knight, there's a check there. If knight takes knight, then rook takes queen. So queen f4 from Marsouilou. Takes. Rook takes. So you can see that at the moment, Gukesh has an extra knight, but Marsouilou has 3 pawns for the knight. And actually, if white plays, for example, a4, it's probably about even. I mean, frankly, all 3 results are possible here. But Marsouilou blundered. He played knight c4. Exchange of rooks, queen e5, and after rook d1, basically black has a mating attack. That knight does a fantastic job of keeping the king safe. And the game ended like this. Actually, really nice finish from Gukesh. He played rook d5 and Marsouilou resigned. So if, let me see, queen e2, then knight check, and queen e4 is mate. If queen e7, again a knight check, and queen e1 wins the queen. If queen b8, king h7, and well, that king is not going to last very long. Staggering around in the middle. But I think that's in some ways very typical of Gukesh. He's really confident in sharp positions. This move knight g4 wasn't necessary, but he really goes for it. He put his opponent under enormous pressure. He's a brilliant calculator. Let me show you another game from the Olympiad, just the end of it. So this is his game against Fabiano Caruana. Incredibly complex game. Remember, Caruana, number 2 in the world. And Gukesh is getting the upper hand now. But still, white's king is a bit exposed. There's a pawn on the second rank. Queen g6 from Caruana, which looks interesting to kind of, hit things here. But rook f4 just keeps everything together. Queen g5, h4, queen is pushed back. Queen d2, so eliminating that important pawn. Still quite tricky because white's pieces are a little bit oddly placed and the king is potentially exposed. But, well, Gukesh played with a very sure hand here. Queen d7, excellent move. Of course, if the knight moves, then bishop f5 wins the queen. Bishop moved. Rook b6, hitting that bishop. Bishop f7. And the queen is now attacked. That knight is also attacked. So queen d6 forced. And then the endgame is winning for white. White has 2 extra pawns. And this is how the game ended. Once that bishop is anchored there, then that's beautiful. And the king is just going to march across to dislodge the knight, and that's game over. So Caruana resigned. But yeah, brilliant game from Gukesh to beat the world number 2. And in the Olympiad, Gukesh scored a remarkable 9 out of 10 on board 1 and helped India to win the gold. So yeah, a player for big tournaments, no doubt about it. So you can see that Ding is not in great form. Gukesh is in excellent form. But I think, Ding can do it if he manages to play to his best. But who knows what is going to happen. For Gukesh, there is the danger, even subconsciously, that he believes he's playing someone who's not in their best form. and that somehow you wait for mistakes to happen. So he has to convince himself that he's playing someone who's in the full of their health, and who knows, Ding could be. Anyway, it is going to be really tense, whatever happens. So do join me on the channel. I'll be giving recaps for every game. I'll try to produce them as quickly as possible after the games end. But bear with me anyway. It's going to be fantastic. Do join me.